We're going to shift gears now, and we are going to move to the PechaKucha portion of our program. And some people were like, "What's this PechaKucha?" And then somebody told me last night, "I never heard of it before, but now I've heard of it 4 times in the last week." So it's not a new concept, but it is something that kind of is designed to give us what we're looking for, which is we want a whirlwind tour of we want to sample a lot of different projects in a short amount of time. And so we're going to take a whirlwind tour around Wisconsin. We have some projects from the students, some projects that are just that the students did, and Matt and Elizabeth are going to present those. But we're going to go in order of this list, correct, Elizabeth? Right? Okay. So if everyone has this list, we're roughly going in alphabetical order by community. So if you will be ready when you're the next one to step up and get moving on to your presentation. Elizabeth has a black slide in between each one. So the first project up in the PechaKucha session of this workshop is Baraboo, and we have Mayor Rob Nelson here from Baraboo talking about 2 historic projects, I think, and maybe a couple of other things he snuck in there as well. So with that, we'll introduce Mayor Rob Nelson.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm Rob Nelson, Mayor of Baraboo, also joined by Seth Micey from our Baraboo Economic Development Commission, so you can talk to either one of us afterwards. I could talk about Baraboo all day, so 6 minutes and 40 seconds is going to be a big challenge. I apologize if I whip through this pretty quickly. Baraboo is a city of about 13,000 people, about 45 miles north of here. We're also the county seat, so we're blessed with having a beautiful county courthouse in the center of our downtown, which is host to a lot of festivals, art fairs, parades, other events like that, concerts. Brings a lot of professional offices and things like that to our city as well, so you have a lot of banking, accounting, title companies, and things like that. History speaking, we're also home to the Ringling Brothers. If you didn't know that, we're the home of the original Ringling Brothers Circus. So one of the events we have every year is the Big Top Parade, and here we've got that captured in front of the Al Ringling Theater, which was built by Al Ringling, and now owned by the State Historical Society of Wisconsin. A couple of projects I'm going to touch on very quickly have nothing to do with historic preservation, but are just some examples of projects we've worked on. Actually, these were both in the pipeline before my tenure started. One is Greenfield Estates, addressing the housing challenge with 132 apartments, 60 houses, and about 30 duplexes on the east side of town. And then this one is another one called Rapid River Apartments, which is a little closer to downtown. Now, both of those have in common a lot of city collaboration through TIF districts, gifts of land, but have not really contributed to protecting our inner core. They're really sort of sprawly, and so part of my agenda is to try to improve things that we're doing with infill and retaining current structures. So the first one I'm going to talk about as an opportunity is the Old Ringling Hospital. This was donated in 1922 by Della Ringling. Yes, you're catching on. And was the first hospital in the city. She donated her house here as the hospital. And then as a result of World War II and the Badger Ordnance Plant, an addition was put on in 1945 by Baraboo architect Louis Sybers, about 9,000 square feet per floor, total of 32 new beds, 3 floors. And that was in operation until 1963 as the city's hospital until the new St. Clair Hospital was born. And just as a neighborhood context, this is the hospital site. It's in a residential neighborhood, a lot of single-family homes, pretty well-to-do area in through here. The other thing we saw from the Ringlings is sort of a siphon of money. The circus would be getting money on tour and then bring that money back as the winter quarter. So you see architecture that's a little notch nicer in Baraboo. From the edge of the building, you also have a very nice view of the Baraboo Hills up here. It's about a 7% slope on that block. So a rise of about 20 feet over the course of that block. But as a residential opportunity, it gives you a great view. Inside, not so great. From 1963 to 1975, it was a skilled nursing facility and then a convent until 1998. And then since then, it's been pretty much vacant. So inside, you have a lot of decay, probably some contamination, lead paint, asbestos, who knows what's in the traps of the drains from the hospital. And then on the outside, some obvious signs of decay, broken windows, and things like that. The other external challenge that this site does have is the neighbors who would love to see this turned into a park. Whenever we talk to them about putting housing here, they're like, oh my God, we don't want those people living next to us. We just want it to remain vacant. The second site I'm going to talk about very quickly has a few fewer challenges. This is a former high school for the city of Baraboo, built in 1928, built in the Prairie style by Madison architects Claude and Stark. Served as the city's high school for about 50 years through 1979, at which point ownership was transferred over to the city of Baraboo, and it was rechristened as the Baraboo Civic Center. It's just under 60,000 square feet, 4-story brick and stone structure. Originally featured, still features a gymnasium and auditorium. It originally had a playground actually on the roof of the building up here when it was a school. Unlike the hospital, this building has been very well maintained. The structure is very sound, both inside and out. It's been updated, new windows, new HVAC, new lighting. Mostly now it's used as rentals, both long-term and short-term on the interior. Still has a gymnasium and fitness room that serve the public. Site also features this vacant parking, or not vacant, but this parking lot. It's a 2.6 acre site altogether. There's also a small veterans memorial that's maintained by a local veterans group on the north side of the property. So a real opportunity, in addition to restoring and maintaining and using better use for this property, putting something adjacent to that that may complement it. In terms of context, this is the site of this property. Baraboo River is a block and a half away. We've got city and county offices here. We've got our square that I showed earlier, along with our downtown business district, all within walking distance with lots of cafes, coffee shops, the library, things like that. Again, another great view. You can see south to the Baraboo Hills because of the slope of the city going down towards the river. In terms of housing, gives you a really great view of the rest of the community. And catching up here just a little bit. Also exists within a TIF district, so opportunities there for redevelopment. Final one I'm going to hit very quickly is our BUU site, UW Baraboo. This was a 2-year campus that was built in 1966, so just the same age as the SHPOs. 5 buildings on the site. As you may have heard, UW has closed a lot of 2-year campuses, including this one, which will close in a few weeks at the end of this semester. It's owned jointly by the city and the county. So we are in the process of collaborating with the county on developing a reuse plan. It's about 70 acres all told. Again, a lot of residential development nearby. This is Highway 12 along the edge here. And then the high school and middle school and one of the elementary schools are adjacent to the property there. And so that's it, as fast as I could go. The other thing I want to mention about Baraboo, we've talked a lot about buildings, but I always feel that people are what really make Baraboo tick. And we've got a great business community and I hope great people in government to help you do a great project there. And so that's Baraboo.
All right, everyone, good morning. My name is Dave Stira. I'm the co-owner of the historic Tremont LLC in Columbus, Wisconsin. Thanks for making some time to hear from me this morning. PechaKucha is a perfect format because I could talk about this till 2027. All right, so my partner Brian and I live in a historic home in Columbus. We actually live within walking distance of the Tremont. We're first-time developers. My main career is as a floor manager with Amazon, but I'm also a Navy officer currently in the reserves. Brian's an attending neurologist at UW Health in Madison. He also serves on Columbus's Historic Landmarks and Preservation Committee. Columbus is a small town about 40 minutes northeast of downtown Madison. We're about 5,500 people. Most folks commute to Madison. The town's full of historic turn-of-the-century architecture reflecting a lot of different styles, to include the Tremont. The Tremont is a 3-story, 10,000 square foot former hotel. It was built in 1892, and it's just north of our main Four Corners intersection. One of the reasons it stands out is the use of red brick, in great contrast to the rest of the downtown, which is all the traditional cream city brick. It also has a parking lot in the back, which is distinct from other places in town too. For most of its life, the Tremont was a hotel. The original floor plan had 28 rooms on the top 2 floors and a grand restaurant on the ground floor. It's changed hands about 10 times, with the floor plan changing many times as well. In the 90s and 2000s, the main function of the building was low-income housing, with a variety of different businesses occupying the ground floor, to include like a pizza parlor and a tanning salon. Standard stuff for a small town. More recently, in 2014, there was a fire and it caused pretty much a complete gutting of the entire building, including all 3 floors. After the fire, the previous owner completed some structural repairs to include steel beams, a new roof, but he had a family medical emergency that caused the project to freeze completely in 2016, and it's sat vacant ever since. Brian and I contacted the previous owner in summer of 2024 after some encouraging conversations with him and with our general contractor. We decided to purchase it in January 2025. Our plan is to fund the renovation through a combination of state and local grants, historic tax credits, a construction loan, and our own equity, because we're trying to invest in our community. Our first step was to seek out the design firm that initially did the renovation plans after the fire and come up with a new plan. Our division for the Tremont is 2 commercial spaces at street level and then 6 apartments in the upper floors. These plans were state approved last summer and taken into account all the requirements associated with historic tax credits. One of our key partnerships through this was actually someone we encountered through the Wisconsin Historical Society. We connected with Kate Bisson to help us with our historic tax credits. She's been instrumental in our project, and that's why she gets her own slide. But in any case, we're very grateful to Kate. She's been a phenomenal partner and continues to help us even as our project takes a lot of twists and turns. In addition to the historic tax credits, we have 2 grants in our funding stack. The first and smaller of the 2 is a facade grant through our municipality. The second and more impactful is a grant through WEDC's Community Development Initiative. Our City Council voted unanimously to support our application, and the only real constraint with this grant is that it has to be mixed use. It can't just be all housing. And that was kind of our plan all along, so that's fine. The conditions of our historic tax credits are relatively unobtrusive. We have to make sure that we preserve the grand historic stairway, do some exterior repairs, maintain the plaster walls on the interior 4 walls, or it's one of the few things that remains after the fire. All right. The issue here is that we are missing the lender that we need for our construction loan. A handful of lenders were interested when we first were operating off our initial budget, but between November 2024 and June 2025, lots of things have happened, and our costs have increased by about 30%. This is a result of geopolitical developments, high interest rates, et cetera. After talking with many lenders, only one was willing to work with us, and that is until they surprised us by demanding a large sum be set aside for a commercial tenant build-out on the ground floor. Until that point, our budget could cover the project, even if just barely, but in that extra upfront amount was too much. We made the tough decision to pause our project, regroup, and build up our financial position in the meantime. We're confident that we still have our city's support, but we regret not being able to deliver the first time around. We're going to have to recompete for both the CDI grant and the facade grant. We've been using this time to accumulate capital, refine our building plans, and strengthen our finances. And as you can see here, we've also invested some sweat equity, quite literally. We're removing the old framing and keeping it for reuse. All right, so some lessons learned that we feel like would be appropriate for other folks. First, we had several conversations with accountants who fundamentally did not understand how credits fit within our project. We eventually found someone in Minnesota, but we'd be open to working with someone locally, particularly if they have contacts with those who use tax credits regularly. So number 2 is select your design firm carefully. We used the same firm that the previous owner did, thinking it would save us money. It didn't, and it certainly did not save time, because as it turns out, they don't have an in-house architect. So it came into a 3-person telephone of us, the design firm, and their third-party architect. So that certainly didn't help us move things quickly at all. Next, historic tax credits are great if you have huge amounts of passive income, but they are very hard to use if you don't. Small developers like us have to sell our tax credits to larger entities at a discount, incurring legal costs along the way. And because of the administrative overhead, we found that many buyers of historic tax credits only consider huge projects with millions of dollars in credits, not small projects like ours. Pretty much across the board, banks want to see a 1.2 cash flow before getting serious about lending. But there's considerable variability in how they want customers to integrate vacancy, developers' fees, tenant build-out, and contingency funds. This makes it really complicated when dealing with multiple potential lenders, all of whom want to see different things and often in different formats. We've incorporated these lessons and are looking to rebound from our pause. First, we need a lender who is comfortable with a diverse funding stack to include the historic tax credits. Second, more interest in our street-level commercial spaces would strengthen our position with lenders. Third, we're open to community-minded investors, whether they're drawn to equity or to our historic tax credits, but it's not a cheap project. In the end, we're far from out of options, and we're looking forward to the day when we can finally turn the lights back on in this community landmark. Thanks so much to the team here for letting us share our story today. For the audience, if any of this piqued your interest, I'll be at the poster session. And I apologize for reading to you. I did used to teach history at the U.S. Naval Academy, and I always criticize people when they read stuff to me, but I apologize for that. Thanks so much.
Good Good morning, everyone. My name is Marc Zettler. I am the founder of Zettler Design Studio, which is a full-service architecture and historic preservation firm in West Salem, Wisconsin. And this is the Gerard Hotel in Ladysmith, Wisconsin. And so you can see this is a beautiful old hotel building on the north end of downtown in Ladysmith. It's right on a bend that is above the, are we still going? All right, the Flambeau River. This is a historic photo from when the building was less than 5 years old. You can see that there was a boathouse where you could rent boats and paddle around the river. So quite a unique experience up there in the Northwoods. And with this building, the challenge is, number one, it doesn't have heat anymore. And it's been freezing every year for the last 3 winters. There's a lot of deterioration. And it is also having major problems. All the plumbing froze and burst in the building. There's rot. The foundation has collapsed in 2 different locations. So it needs a lot of help. And I was brought in by the city of Ladysmith to put together a mini historic structure report, is basically the street term. Officially, it's called an architecture and history analysis, to see, number one, if the building could be saved, and number 2, what are we going to do with it? And so getting into it a little bit, there's good parking on the site. It's got probably the best location in town, and it's only 1.5 blocks from the middle of downtown and 1 block off of US Highway 8. So great location, just building that's fallen on tough times in a small community. Ladysmith only has about 3,000 people living in it right now. And so basically, the building is a horseshoe shape with all of the additions. The main building was the first 5 windows, and then you see the small window on the right and another window. That was an addition that was created in 1905 when the building was only 4 years old. So it was very successful when it was first constructed. And you can see the historic photo here. And this is just after the addition is done. You can see there was a livery in the back for horses, and the street wasn't even paved yet. So it's got amazing character. It is the most iconic building in Ladysmith. So the city uses it in their marketing campaigns with their imagery, and that's why they don't want the building to come down. And they're currently working with the property owner. They don't know if the property owner is going to keep the building or sell the building, because there is such a significant financial investment that's going to be required to bring this building back. And you can see we've had major roof leaks in this building. The egress is a problem. There's 50, 60 foot long dead end corridors in there right now, which means you have jump balconies. So if there's a fire, you run to the end of the building, jump, and you break an ankle instead of burning up. So that would be something that we would want to address if a project goes ahead. And the lobby is highly intact. The grand stair goes all the way up to 3rd floor with minimal changes. The grand stair also goes to the basement, and there was probably a sample room or a sales room down there at some point. I don't know if you're familiar with historic hotels, but many times they had kind of mixed use spaces for traveling salesmen and events and things like that on the lower levels. And then our proposal was to restore it. In the 1980s, they put vinyl siding over and tore a lot of the historic trim off on the front and the north side. But some of the historic trim and everything is still located on the back of the building. So if it moves forward, we will be able to replicate and create an actual new trim work package and restore the windows. There's about 6 original windows. Everything else is a modern vinyl window, so those should get replaced with something that's more appropriate if moving forward. And one other thing I will add is the porch is the 2nd generation porch. The historic photos, it was just completely wood framed, and right around sometime in the 1940s, they took the wood frame off and put the stone wall that's there today. So when we're talking about period of significance and period of restoration with these buildings, we need to figure out, and would it be appropriate to go back to that 1940 look or go all the way back to 1901 or 1905? And with the stone porch being there and in good condition, that kind of led us in this study to come to the conclusion that a 1940s period of restoration would be most appropriate. And it's still got a lot of beautiful details. Inside, it's got the original cash register, the original clerk's desk. A lot of the transom windows are there, even though they're covered with suspended ceilings right now. So it's got good bones. It's just got a lot of work and a lot of modern remodelings that have been done over the years.
You can see the neon sign. I wasn't able to confirm exactly when that was put up, but we think it's sometime possibly when the porch reconstruction happened in the 1940s, and then a view from the porch of the Flambeau River. So it does have excellent views. And you can see here was the key slots for the hotel. And basically, our two conclusions was that this would be, number one, apartments, or two, a hotel would be the best use. Building's always been residential in use, and typical to hotels, the first floor has the high ceilings, and then as you go up, the ceilings get lower and lower, whereas in many grander commercial buildings, where if you have your ballroom on the top floor, the floors get taller and taller as you go up. So kind of the opposite with a hotel, so that kind of led us to come up with our concept. And then we also decided that we needed an addition on the back. So that would take care of egress, and that would give us a couple extra apartment units or hotel rooms if this project moves forward. There's major problems. Again, just about every plumbing line blew apart when the building froze because the boilers failed in February, of course, and then the whole building, the sprinkler system, the pipes, everything burst inside. And here's a couple great details. The newel post in the lobby, and then this would be the front parlor or sitting room that used to be there. And then as it was being converted from a hotel to apartments over time, that became the living quarters for the caretaker of the property, or the manager. It does have some crime issues right now with people breaking in. They were thankful that nobody set a fire in there yet, knock on wood. But the police have been there numerous times trying to secure the building, and you can see windows are broken out. It's a huge project. It's going to require multiple phases, and it's going to require historic tax credits. That's just the only way this is going to work financially. And the building is not currently listed, but we believe there's enough historic integrity there where it can make the National Register with a good nomination. Another view of the porch. We did talk about in the study alternative funding sources. I know the last gentleman down here was talking about CDI grant. We were looking into that as well. And then any TIF or TID funding that Ladysmith might have. And the important thing that we're trying to do is to work with the layout of the building. We're not trying to do a gut renovation and just have a shell and create some new rooms inside. We're trying to work with the historic hallways that are there, the historic doorways, the trim, the transoms, everything, to keep as much intact so that it still feels like that hotel, even if it is apartments or if it becomes a boutique hotel again. And just a couple more views. You can see we've got some nice trees growing through the roof in the back and out at the foundation on the north side. So what is the use going to be? We don't know, but it's going to take probably a public-private partnership to get this done, whether it's with the current property owner or somebody in the future who's going to buy the building and rehab it. But it needs to happen soon because this building is having major structural issues. And the view from the stairs of the clerk's desk, cash register, and then that front parlor. And it is an iconic building. It's absolutely beautiful inside. When you get past all the moldy shag carpeting and everything that's in there right now. And I really hope that this project does move forward. But the lessons learned, as long as the building's standing, it's never too late. But once it's gone forever. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chris. We're here to present some of the challenges and opportunities that we're facing trying to revitalize 3 historic but neglected buildings in the near west side neighborhood of Milwaukee. By the way, we're also reading from the cards, David, so no worries. These 3 buildings are reflective of Milwaukee's architectural legacy, and they should be preserved, but at what cost? And also, as a nod to you guys, we're using the jigsaw puzzle analogy.
West Wisconsin Avenue was once one of Milwaukee's most prestigious residential corridors. Large homes lined the street, housing the city's most prominent residents. Today, the neighborhood struggles with pockets of vacancy and blight.
For anyone who's ever endeavored to start a project of any size, this sign is totally appropriate. There truly are no warning signs ahead. I took this picture in Western Alaska and I've been waiting 20 years to use it in a slide presentation.
Vacant buildings represent lost economic value and cultural identity. Revitalizing them is all about restoring neighborhood character and reconnecting the past to the present.
Graffiti, boarded up windows, trash, overgrown foliage. These are all clear signs of the neglect these properties suffered and have endured during the past ownership and decades.
Designed by the once prominent Milwaukee architecture firm Ferry and Class, this building, the Sanborn House, reflects high-quality craftsmanship and architectural detail worth preserving.
But years of neglect have led to structural issues, namely water damage, and a loss of historic elements, mainly at the hand of ne'er-do-wells, raccoons, and cats.
Simon Loftus developed the 12-unit Glen Gables in 1923 as workforce housing. We think it has the potential to be brought back to life as workforce housing once again.
And despite all the neglect and abuse we've talked about, these buildings have suffered. There are glimmers of the architectural detail and beauty that still remain.
Vacant buildings affect perceptions of neighborhood safety and as a result discourage any meaningful investment. 820 27th Street is the last building to be developed on this block on the near west side of Milwaukee.
Years of water intrusion, thanks to the leaking roof and an absentee owner, have left us with a multi-floor cleanup at 820 27th on aisle 27, as we like to call it. We've called up McEnroe Engineering and Quorum Architects to help us fix this mess.
A cleanup of this magnitude to make the building safe meant shoring up joists, disconnecting a live power feed, patching roof leaks, and filling many dumpsters of debris.
Our first major hurdle in this project was getting the previous owner to the table. Mohammed Rashad, who's well known in Milwaukee, was a shrewd person to deal with. It took us 3 different iterations of a contract and 9 months to get a deal closed.
Another challenge is the financial one. Current market conditions create uncertainty and volatility that affects investment financing and long-term sustainability of redevelopment. Insurance is increasingly difficult to secure and keep.
And in order to adhere to the historic requirements that involve this project, and also having no original drawings, we had to turn to our architects at Quorum, Emily and Travis, to use Matterport scanning technology to come up with as-built drawings.
The Near West Side has had several successful large projects recently. This has made it feasible for a smaller operator like us to enter and tackle smaller projects, thus building on the neighborhood's momentum.
Developing a strong team was an opportunity to us in helping to make this project successful. Architects, engineers, historic consultants, our bid representatives at Near West Side Partners, they're all crucial to helping us make this a success.
Recent bipartisan legislation, the Historic Tax Credit Repair Bill, AB 375, is also a key element to this project's success. The importance cannot be overstated. Its passage allows the stacking of historic tax credits with WIDA financing.
The Wellesley Flats at 26 and West Wells Street is our first rehab project in the Near West Side. We updated a 1911 building that was largely vacant and unused with all new systems and finishes. We did this using conventional debt and equity. But in order to complete a project like the one we're looking at now, you sometimes have to look at it like a puzzle and look at it in a different light. It became apparent to us that in order to make this project pencil, we had to turn towards historic tax credits. Wish us luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just a quick intro. I think what I've been watching for half an hour is sort of like an inch wide and a mile deep. What you're going to see now, the next 3 is an inch deep and about a mile wide. Okay, so this is scanning by students using kind of our best I don't know, decision-making that some of these buildings that, as I explained from the industrial survey that was done by Historic Society, seem like that they would be good candidates. And actually, we looked at this in a way that said, we need a lot of units. Okay, so we've seen some projects here with a few units, but we really looked at this housing challenge, as I had said before, as being what are these great industrial buildings that can really get a lot of units out of them. So we looked at a couple dozen and scanned a couple dozen of these projects. After I show this one, we're going to show two other ones, but it is really very much from these would be kind of good buildings to look forward to and perhaps engage in a historic tax credit reuse possibility. And I think I'll have a couple students on the next two are going to do an intro for those, but I'll just talk quickly now about this one. I think it's a kind of interesting project to start out with here, and I think she has it on the timer, so I'll have to go very quickly with this. Okay, so in about 1998 or so, 99, Tom Kapp from the Gorman Company came to me in Milwaukee and said, would there be any kind of interesting buildings that we could use tax credits for and develop into a reuse building with residential? Okay, those are the Fifth Ward lofts. This is a picture now of our industrial kind of area of Milwaukee, the Third Ward, the Fifth Ward. We're just kind of over, you actually can see the building. It's just over the river in the Fifth Ward. And I said, well, we've got a couple of kind of good ones. Now remember, this is 27, 28 years ago that we did this. And I'm using this format Catherine gave us. Why does it matter? Well, with the tax credits, the affordability component, the kind of accountability, in some ways I use that word just because of our carbon footprint. We can't keep demoing buildings. And then appeal. It's really an interesting looking building. And it's been used nicely. I put this up in some ways for Dinah's purpose. On the bottom right is what the photographic documentation of the South 2nd Street Historic District. We need to scan and photograph these buildings. That was done 20 years ago. But it's right next to now the South 2nd Street. That's the building, okay? The challenge with the building, I know a lot of people here know about this building, the Fifth Ward Lofts, was it was between these two railroad lines. Okay, a little bit hard to see, but here's one and the other one kind of going on the south side. It was the Bostrom building, okay? And it was the source of the Bostrom seat, okay? We had a problem. He asked me, Tom Kapp, we need one in a federal district. Here we go, South 2nd Street District. We missed the district, Mike. It was not in the district. So we got Gary Tepler said, we got to figure out how to get this on the register. So we got it on for the Bostrom seat. Okay, I could give a half an hour lecture on the Bostrom Street, but that's used around the world. It's a tractor seat, okay? He got it on the National Register. We could use our tax credits and move forward with that. But you can see the rail lines that used to come up to this industrial building. And ironically, this is a lot of the buildings we deal with the industrial Milwaukee area is not exactly residential friendly. I put this up here, and basically it's kind of what we encounter a lot with these industrial buildings, a lot of black interior space. That's difficult for units. That black really is the area now that we scooped out of the middle of the building, okay? And you're gonna see the atrium so that we could kind of maximize the amount of units that we could fit into that building, because as most of you know, it's the perimeter envelope, how many units that you can get in, right? You need light for bedrooms and living rooms and so forth. And also helping and stimulating the South 2nd Street Historic District. We had to be very kind of careful about where we put units, okay? Those trains come squeaking around that turn. You can hear that. So we had, really had to acoustically isolate those units, bathrooms, things like that at those spots. So you got to go in and really kind of be very careful, about how you lay units out, okay? We got this then on the register for this Bostrom seat matter, okay? So we were good to go. So before the project even started, we had 25% tax credit at that time, before it was elevated, and then 50% low income. So Todd, we started that out before they spent $1. 75% of that development project was covered. So with our low income, we have 17% below the poverty county. And it's full now, and it was full a month after it was put up. And some images I show because we really had a lot of area that we couldn't put units in, okay, because it didn't have windows. So we developed at that time these amenities. You see this now, but that was sort of revolutionary. You know, golf course and storage and party rooms. We put rooms on the community room on the top. So the idea in those dead spaces really to create the amenities. That really became very popular and appealing, and it's why it's rented up right away. We had to deal with people from Chris Root's department about ADA. I think if any of you deal with industrial buildings, it's, that first floor is usually 3, 4, 5 feet above the sidewalk. And our obstacles really were trying to maximize the units around the perimeter. So we put elevators, stairs, and so forth in the middle, in that black space you saw before. We couldn't take up perimeter apartment space. So we put them in the middle. You can see the glass block of the stair unit and so forth. And actually I put this up because we then put units around the atrium, okay? So you can see bedrooms, dining rooms looking at the atrium, okay? And at that time, code required that that had to be open to the sky, Chris. That's what qualified then those as occupiable rooms in there. 5 years later, the Gorman Company put a shield, a translucent kind of covering over that. So at least, because we had snow coming down and rain, we knew that. But we put the cover over it, and so it functions quite nice and is completely occupied. And you guys recognize the stimulating this growth on South 2nd Street. So this is the residential unit just across the street to the west, and has been 1998. I mean, there wasn't much going on that little street back then, but it has really kind of stimulated and improved this whole matter of those great buildings on South 2nd Street. So lessons learned, get proper documentation, okay? Those things that exist in the library, you can't tell what's going on, but I put that, get a good team. Start off with a good team. Get your advisors, talked about banks, get that team together at the beginning. Don't waste a whole lot, a couple months of a lot of expensive architecture design time. Get the experts who know and have done these before and have gone through the historic tax credit process. And we're getting more and more of that. We certainly are. I mean, a long time ago we had, it was very difficult finding even the Gorman Company, Alexander now, I don't know if John is here yet, but we certainly have architects, engineers, banks, and so forth that are experienced with this matter of historic tax credits. So that was that Fifth Ward lofts, and I think, oh, you're going to do this one.
Stay up here because you're going to be talking about the second half. Okay, so next up, I will be talking about the Northwestern Malleable Iron Company building with Matt. So just a brief introduction, the Northwestern Malleable Iron Company building is a former industrial building located in Milwaukee's Menominee Valley. Originally it was part of a larger manufacturing complex, and it reflects the city's early 20th century industrial growth at a core moment in Milwaukee's history. Today it stands as an underutilized building with potential for affordable housing adaptive reuse. In the late 19th and 20th century, and early 20th centuries, Milwaukee was a major manufacturing hub in the United States with a prominent iron industry. The Menominee Valley was full of foundries, rail lines, and factories that fueled the city's economy and growth. The building here is located in the Walker's Point area of Milwaukee, which is a rapidly developing neighborhood that has coming from an industrial background into a vibrant new inhabitable area. So the Northwestern Malleable Iron Company building is a strong candidate for affordable housing for its simple structure and layout, as well as its location in Walker's Point. So again, the site is located in the Walker's Point district, and looking at this zoning map, we can see that it is zoned as, let's see, I don't know if it's, the site is located in the Walker's Point district. It is a historically industrial area that is surrounded by other industrial buildings. Looking at the zoning map here, we can see that it is currently zoned as a planned development, which allows for flexibility in adaptive reuse projects and encourages development and that is compatible with the surroundings and consistent with the city's comprehensive plans. So During some background on the history of the building, during its operation under Northwestern Malleable Iron Company, the subject building served as the office building for the manufacturing complex, and the interior floor plan would lend itself very nicely to an adaptive reuse of just basically gutting it and turning it into units. And then Matt will talk about the challenge.
Okay, great. I don't know, we have 20 slides, right? We don't have that many slides in this. So that's the location. You saw the map on the location. So it's in an industrial area, so you'd have to go through rezoning to get this residential. But that has happened before. Ken Brunig is our master of getting things rezoned into residential. And advantages of this building, well, you saw the elevation, beautiful appeal of that south facade. And plenty of perimeter. I talked about that with Fifth Street loss, but plenty of kind of perimeter exterior surface then to create units. So what the students did also is they took those, and you have the footprint, right, that you put on there too, to kind of see what one might be able to kind of develop out of this. Now, the one restriction or restriction, the paper box is near there. It's kind of kitty corner paper box at South 16th Street. So it has happened. There has been a rezoning with the paper box company doing a residential building. So this is also what the students did with these buildings. Sort of look, you know, how many units can we get out of this thing? And what was your total then, Elizabeth? 23?
23 units. Yeah.
Units, 3 floors. You saw that kind of half floor down below. 23 units out of it, and they hooked up just a block away from National Avenue. And what actually is developing is a very kind of reasonable part of the city with residents, residential, and so forth. And a little bit different than the Fifth Ward loft that had you know, so much interior space. Okay, if you're going to look at this, and if you're going to look at industrial buildings, as I tell my students, at least in my mind, after doing this for so many years, particularly in Chicago, 60 is a magic number. 60 feet is a kind of magic number, okay? Because the stuff that you do in as new buildings, that's pretty much the sacred number for parking. 20, basically 20, 22, but 20, 20, 20, okay? And that's actually not a bad layout for units. So it kind of works out pretty well, that 60-foot dimension. You put the hallway in the middle, you have 25-foot depth of an apartment, 25, and the rest is hallway and corridor. So that actually are kind of some lessons that the students get to learn about doing these. So that's an excellent building then for that kind of conversion. So it is owned right now, but as I've talked to others, and like I say, Ken Brunig and others, there's always a price, right? Everything is for sale in the world, right, if the price is right. But that actually is a building in excellent shape. Marcus, you showed us some falling apart buildings, you know. That building's in excellent shape. There wouldn't have to be a whole lot of kind of new, and certainly not a lot of changes, and you wouldn't need to scoop out that interior space. Okay, we better keep moving then. Emily.
Hi guys, thank you so much. I'm just going to talk briefly about the A.O. Smith building, and then I will hand it over to Matt to do the hard part. So A.O. Smith is a hollow burden root project that was originally built in 1931. It's located on North 27th Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The project is one of 4 remaining buildings from the A.O. Smith factory complex. It was part of the industrial boom in Milwaukee in the 19th and 20th century, primarily focusing on the automobile industry, manufacturing, and the A.O. Smith was the main supplier for the Ford company for automobile production. So the location of the building is in the Franklin Heights neighborhood in Milwaukee. It was once a farming community and then kind of became an industrial and residential hub. Thanks to the rapid growth by A.O. Smith, it really changed the demographic of the neighborhood and drew in a large amount of residents seeking manufacturing jobs. I'm going to hand it over to Matt.
Okay, great, thanks. Good work, Emily. I think a lot of people know about this A.O. Smith building, okay? That's a pretty common understanding in the city of Milwaukee. I think there'll be a plan that comes up that shows a lot of the campus of those buildings that you saw have been demoed. A couple of them remain, so this seems to be kind of office headquarters right next to the building in question, is to the left, but most of the campus has been demoed. And I know that the city of Milwaukee has been wanting to demo that thing. My good friend Rocky Marcoux, and we're still friends, but boy, he wanted to get rid of that A.O. Smith building. But there it is. Now you see some netting over it because it is now the new challenge I think that my students will face, and that is with mid-century modern buildings. Okay, they're curtain wall buildings. They don't have that kind of substantial construction that we've seen with the Fifth Ward lofts and the other buildings presented. And so now all of a sudden you have a thin wall building. But I remember coming across this in the commission 20 years ago when they wanted to demo it, and I thought it was a kind of 1950s building. It just seemed to be that way. We did research, and it's 1930-31, which really makes it one of the first curtain wall buildings in the country. This building right here, Oliver and Root Architects out of Chicago. The significance is obvious that this is a landmark of national status. And so our little layout here, and you're going to kind of see that interior black in a second here, I think on the next, one of the next photos. And that was a big open atrium area. There's that campus. You remember that old photo of all the buildings on the campus. That's the campus now, okay? So the building is there and the rest has been leveled and removed. And the next slide is going to kind of show us that big atrium space in the middle of the footprint. So it actually seems to be that we can get quite a few units out of this. One of the slides will tell us. Do you remember how many? 156 units out of this. So you see that central kind of atrium space. So again, like the Third Ward lofts or the Bostrom building, we sort of laid it out that you could get bedrooms and usable spaces looking into that atrium. So vision to stimulate renewal of the 3rd Street Industrial Corridor. A lot of you know the city's desire is now to develop that industrial corridor now into residential use. And the building is still there, and hopefully will become an important kind of anchor in Century City, okay, waiting for development along that area. So it's not a done deal. It could still face demolition. We don't know, but using tax credits and coming with some kind of creative layout ideas for it could be possible. All right, I think you said 166, right? Way to go, Elizabeth. So there we are at 166, and the atrium in the middle, and being able to kind of elevate our 1 and 2 bedroom count by getting that bedroom space that looks out onto that atrium that you saw in that photograph. So I think this is our closing thought, a national landmark. Yeah, we need to really appreciate these things in Milwaukee. We have things of this kind of significance, and we should really do what it takes to try to keep these and find historic tax, just find logical ways to be developer friendly and aid. And so it's scanned well by William. We really know exactly what the square footage is of this building, and another benefit of kind of scanning these buildings early and understanding exactly how big they are and how many units we can fit in them. So, okay, here's the black slide. It's Mike. Okay, here's Mike.
All right, thank you.
So I'll be presenting Sheboygan Falls School. Just to let you know, the project was completed just a few years ago, but you'll be seeing some of the before project photos so you can see the work that was done. So starting, it is the school, Sheboygan Falls School, was converted to 56 units of affordable senior housing. The building is composed of multiple building phases. The oldest is seen here, which is the 1928 high school building. Oops. The school is located on a 5-acre parcel that includes a large asphalt parking lot and playground lots, and it is bordered by city streets and surrounded by a residential neighborhood. Built in 1949, the elementary school seen here was the next component of Sheboygan Falls School to be built, and when it was completed, the school property was the site of public education for all of the school-aged children in Sheboygan Falls.
So why it matters. The building's historically significant in the area of education. It's the oldest intact school building in the community, and it best exemplifies the history of education in Sheboygan Falls, having served elementary, middle, and high school students for many decades. I'm going to go back to that. View here is of the rear elevation. It's the 1956 shop and band edition, which contained the music room, industrial arts department, and agricultural department. So here's a building site plan that'll give you a better idea of how the additions built between 1956 and 1963 fit together, and how they connected the 1928 high school and 1949 elementary school. It's actually labeled 48 here, but it's 1949 elementary school buildings. It's important to note that these additions were built as part of a planned expansion program, anticipating the school's enrollment growth, and planned with the intention of expanding educational course offerings at Sheboygan Falls School, and all were designed by the same architect. Based on the significance in the area of education, the school's period of significance is 1928 to 1969. So getting into the rehabilitation project, the design strategy directive from the National Park Service was that each part of the school should reflect the characteristics and finished materials from when it was built. So let me show you in practice with some before and after photos starting here in the 1928 high school, featuring terrazzo floors in the corridors, plaster walls, and originally plaster ceilings. Oops, sorry. These are the finished materials that are reflected here following the rehabilitation. School building finishes evolved as seen here in the 1949 elementary school building, originally featuring glazed tile and painted concrete block walls, asphalt tile floors, and a concealed grid acoustical tile ceiling, which you can see reflected here after the rehabilitation. So in terms of constraints and vision, they really went hand in hand with this project. The constraint being that there would be no one-size-fits-all solution throughout the building, and each part of the school would reflect the time it was built. With both physical evidence and the finished schedules from the original plans, we had all those answers. We had the original plans for all of the buildings except the 1928 high school. So we were provided clear direction. Here in the 1956 band and shop edition, you have exposed ceiling beams and exposed mechanicals, which are reflected here in this residential unit. This would not have been an appropriate treatment elsewhere in the school, where mechanicals and ductwork had to be concealed. And here in the original, this is the original 1928 gymnasium space, the steel trusses and wood ceiling structure, including student graffiti, as you can see to the right, were intact above the suspended acoustical tile ceiling. As a result of this, As a result of this vision, you have apartments throughout this school with different finishes and features, which really made this one of my favorite rehabilitation projects. You have this one building, but you can go into different apartments that have a different feel throughout. All right, so the challenge. The biggest challenge by far was the windows. So in 1990, during a school modernization project, all the original fenestration was replaced with the windows you see here and infill panels. We originally proposed a halfway solution to just simply add more windows and kind of keep this current look. Park Service denied that, indicating that we'd be creating a fenestration pattern that was never there. So we really either had to work with what was there or revert back to the original fenestration. And wisely, the developer chose to implement a plan to install windows that reflected the original, as seen here with the glass block on the elementary school building. And here with the 12/12 windows on the high school building. And some further examples of fenestration seen on the 1957 and 1963 editions in this photo. Based on historic photos and, again, the copies of the original architectural plans that we had, we were able to replicate the appearance of the original fenestration. So in terms of financial strategy, the project utilized WIDA housing tax credits in addition to the historic tax credits. Building these townhouse units in the parking lot behind the school was a component of acquiring those WIDA credits. On the right, you can see the initial townhome design, which National Park Service did not like. They wanted a flat roof, no gables, and more brick in the design to better reflect the design characteristics of Sheboygan Falls School. Another element in rehabilitating school buildings, as I'm sure many in here know who have been involved in these projects, is that National Park Service wants those large volume spaces, gymnasiums and auditoriums, to remain intact. And fortunately in this project, the local YMCA was looking for more facility space, which allowed the developer to lease the Sheboygan Falls School Gymnasium at a nominal cost to the YMCA. So this worked out really well and was an additional positive impact for the community. And the greatest impact and outcome from the project was the 56 units of affordable senior housing introduced in Sheboygan Falls due to this rehabilitation project. I think the biggest lesson learned was don't fight your historic buildings. Allow their historic finishes and features to be an asset to your project. And the closing thought was, so this message was left on the school building when the last class departed in 2018. And unintentionally, the message also reflects the spirit of historic preservation. Sheboygan Falls School now has a new beginning, serving a new community, and a community need as affordable senior housing while remaining a testament to the history of education in Sheboygan Falls. And that's it.